Exactly. 02:47 a.m., October 19th, 2025. The Orenburg gas plant, Russia, a staggering 1,060 miles from Ukraine, sitting right on the Kazakhstan border. A swarm of 12 Lu-T drones is gliding on the freezing Siberian wind at just 50 feet. In just 43 seconds, all 900 kilos of explosives would turn the Russian winter into the most terrifying nightmare. But this wasn't a lucky shot. It was a kill box planned for months, waiting for this exact moment. The Russians were chilling. They figured Orenburg was untouchable, a fortress guarded by the mighty S-400 and Panzer air defenses. After all, what could possibly reach them over 1,000 miles from the front lines? They forgot about two things. First, the brutal Siberian winter. Ukraine turned that freezing wind into a superhighway, stretching their drones' range by up to 200 miles. Second, they forgot to check their back door. All their defenses were pointed west. Ukraine was coming from the south, right off the Kazakh border. And the target? It's the central choke point that processes gas from both Russia and Kazakhstan. This single facility supplies the hyper-pure helium needed for their advanced missile guidance systems. More importantly, crippling it would instantly vaporize up to 30% of Kazakhstan's gas output, severing a critical revenue stream worth over $10 billion a year that fuels Putin's war. So here's the mission. Fly a swarm of drones 1,060 miles on a highway made of wind, through a freezing gauntlet of S-400s and Panzers, Russia's prized air defense wall. On paper, it's a suicide run. In reality, it's a masterclass in turning Russia's own strengths into its greatest weakness. At 12:30 a.m., 12 Lu-T drones lift off from a secret airbase near Riven. This isn't a brute force flight, it's a masterclass in efficiency. They immediately drop to just 50 feet and catch the 25-mile-per-hour Siberian wind. Think of it like a surfer catching a wave. This tailwind acts as a free engine, saving critical battery life and stretching their 930-mile range into the 1,000-plus miles they need. For navigation, they lock onto the Kazakhstan gas pipeline. It's a massive, unjammable landmark, a perfect iron highway leading them straight to the target's back door. At the same time, 93 miles from Orenburg, Ukraine launches the opening act. 20 cheap, disposable FPV drones buzz into the air. These aren't the primary attackers, they're bait. Their mission is to create an electronic snowstorm. Their transmitters are programmed to flood Russian radar with the exact Doppler frequency of a heavy blizzard. It's a brilliant piece of electronic warfare. Instead of trying to hide, they're creating so much noise that the real threat becomes impossible to spot. The S-400's radar is one of the most powerful in the world. The question is it smart enough to see through a blizzard that isn't really there? Or will its own advanced filters blind it to the 12 wolves gliding silently through the storm? At 02:21 a.m., 50 miles out from the Orenburg plant, an operator staring at a black screen suddenly sees it explode into a constellation of hostile contacts. The bait works flawlessly. His S-400 system doesn't just suggest a threat, it screams it. 20 unidentified targets are closing in, and the entire base snaps to high alert. The order is given to the facility's last line of defense, the Panzer S-1 batteries. This is what they were built for, a rapid-fire missile system designed to shred incoming threats with a wall of steel. 12 57E6 missiles tear into the night sky, their rocket motors burning bright against the darkness. The system's targeting computer is ruthlessly efficient, assigning threats and launching interceptors in a furious automated dance. Within 90 seconds, 15 of the 20 FPV decoys are vaporized. On the Russian command net, there are shouts of victory, a coordinated drone swarm detected and destroyed. It's a short-lived celebration, because they never understood the real mission of those drones. They were sacrificial pawns in a much larger chess game, designed to do one thing: make the Russians look up. And while the Panzer operators were high-fiving, wasting million-dollar missiles on $500 drones, the real threat was closing in, completely unseen. The 12 Lu-T drones, now just 30 miles out, were still gliding at a mere 50 feet. Their tiny radar cross-section, about the size of a large bird, was completely swallowed by the electronic clutter of the fake snowstorm. The advanced filters on the Russian radars, designed to ignore ground-level interference, were now their own worst enemy. The element of total surprise is gone. The base is now a hornet's nest. The problem for the Russians is they're looking for another attack from the sky. They have no idea the wolves are already at the door. At 02:25 a.m., back in Kiev, the Ukrainian drone operators see exactly what they expected. The fireworks display over Orenburg isn't a failure. It's Phase 1 complete. The Russians have taken the bait and revealed their positions. Now it's time for the real move. The pilots flip a switch. On board each Liu-T drone, a specialized electronic warfare module spools to life, unleashing a targeted high-powered jamming signal. It's a digital fire hose of pure electronic noise, aimed directly at the Panzer's X-band frequency. For the Russian operators on the ground, their screens, which were just moments ago showing a clean kill, suddenly turn to pure white static. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack, except the haystack is also on fire and screaming at you. That's only half of the plan. As the jammers blind the radar, the swarm executes a perfectly synchronized beam maneuver. They turn flying precisely perpendicular to the Russian radar dishes. Here's why that's so brilliant. The Panzer's advanced Doppler filters are designed to ignore stationary objects on the ground, what they call ground clutter. To that filter, a drone flying directly sideways at a constant distance has almost zero closing velocity. It doesn't look like a threat. It looks like a fence post. While this is happening, the 5 remaining FPV decoys switch their signals, now mimicking the chaotic radar signature of a large flock of birds, adding another layer of confusion. The Ukrainian pilots have just turned their 12-drone swarm into electronic ghosts. They are invisible, flying through a storm of their own making just 20 miles from the target. A calm voice comes over the comms in Kiev. Swarm is stable, path is clear. The pilots have just blinded the enemy's ground-level eyes. The problem is, Russia still has an eye in the sky. At 02:31 a.m. And that's when the one thing they couldn't plan for happens. The very same Siberian wind that had been their invisible highway decides to betray them. A vicious Ural vortex kicks up, a localized whirlwind that batters the swarm with 35-mile-per-hour crosswinds. It shoves 3 of the Liu-T drones violently off course and worse, upward. They're pushed from their 50-foot safety blanket to an altitude of 200 feet. They've just popped their heads over the trench, and that eye in the sky sees them. Flying in a lazy circle 400 miles away is a Beriev A-50 AWACS plane. It's a flying command post whose powerful radar isn't looking for ground clutter. It's looking down. As the drones fight the wind, their engines strain, causing their thermal signature to spike by a mere 3.6 degrees Celsius. To the A-50's incredibly sensitive sensors, it's like 3 flares just lit up in the darkness. The A-50 operator paints the targets and instantly transmits their exact coordinates to the Panzer battery on the ground. The blind man has just been given a perfect set of eyes. On the Russian operator's screen, 3 glowing red boxes appear out of the static. He has a lock. 2 57 E6 SAMs leap from their launch tubes, accelerating to Mach 3. Inside the Kiev control center, the screen flashes blood red. Alarms blare. SAM launch! SAM launch! Impact in 12 seconds! The entire $10 million operation, the 2,000 pounds of explosives, and the plan to cripple Russia's war economy now hangs by a thread. At 02:32 a.m., inside the Kiev control center, there is no panic, just cold, calculated execution. The entire scenario, from the wind gust to the A-50, was a possibility they had planned for. The pilot's thumb flicks a single switch, and from the underbelly of those 3 targeted drones, Ukraine's ace in the hole drops into the slipstream, the ALE-50 towed decoy. Think of it as the ultimate matador's cape. The decoy is a small pod trailing on a wire that suddenly flares to life. It generates a thermal signature 10 times larger and hotter than the drone itself, screaming at the incoming missile, "Look at me! I'm the real target!" The 3 drones then do something completely counterintuitive. They slam on the brakes, slowing dramatically. This allows the decoys to trail even farther behind, creating an irresistible, separate target. To the missile's simple, heat-seeking brain, the choice is easy. Why chase a small, lukewarm target when there's a giant, blazing bonfire right next to it? The 2 SAMs, traveling at nearly 2,000 miles per hour, make a violent last-second turn. They chase the ghosts. Seconds later, 2 massive fireballs detonate harmlessly a mile away, their shrapnel tearing through nothing but empty Siberian air. On the Panzer operator's screen, the 3 red boxes simply vanish. He's staring at static again. His commander is screaming into the radio, demanding to know what happened. They just fired $2 million worth of missiles at the sky. They've survived the ambush. They've outsmarted the eye in the sky. And now, the Panzer system is in its 90-second reload cycle. The road to Orenburg isn't just open, it's a freshly paved superhighway and the 12 wolves are flooring it. At a 2:35 a.m., the final order from Kiev is a single word: fire. The entire swarm acts as one. Their onboard INS GPS systems are locked onto the WGS-84 coordinates of Orenburg's primary gas processing unit. Each 165-pound bomb doesn't just fall, it glides, its small wings turning gravity into a precision-guided flight path. The shaped-charge warhead punches through the concrete roof of the main building, just feet from the central ventilation axis. It's Ukraine's version of a winter greeting card delivered by express mail. But this isn't just a big explosion, this is physics, and it's beautifully brutal. The fuse on each warhead has a 1.1 second delay. Why? Because the goal wasn't to blow a hole in the roof. The goal was to get inside. That delay allows the bomb to be deep within the structure when it detonates. Now the blast wave has nowhere to escape. Instead of dissipating, it bounces off the reinforced concrete walls, amplifying its own destructive power. It's the difference between setting off a firecracker in an open field and setting it off inside a metal garbage can. That amplified shockwave doesn't just destroy equipment, it fractures the load-bearing columns, it shatters the internal framework. The roof doesn't just get a hole, it pancakes, crushing everything below it. And there's no massive fire, just a secondary effect. The electromagnetic pulse from the detonation fries every unshielded circuit board in the vicinity. The lights are on, but the plant's brain is dead. The terminals are glowing, but the network is silent. Ukraine didn't just throw a rock at the factory. They performed surgical demolition from 1,000 miles away. The damage on the ground is catastrophic. The gas processing unit is a mangled wreck. But within an hour, the real Russian response begins. The FSB swarms the area, establishing a total lockdown. Their job isn't to put out fires, it's to put out information. The official story is released by morning: a minor industrial accident, a small fire that was quickly contained. But you can't lie to an eye in space. A few hours later, high-resolution satellite imagery shows a beautiful 50-foot crater right where the processing unit used to be. The cover-up becomes a joke. Russia just told the world they had a small kitchen fire, while satellite photos showed the whole house had burned down. But the real damage wasn't the hole in the ground. It was the shockwave that hit the entire Russian war economy. This is the domino effect. First, the gas stops. With its central processing brain destroyed, the entire network seizes up. This forces Kazakhstan to slash its output by nearly a third. They can't pump gas into a pipeline that's already clogged. A $10 billion revenue stream for Russia instantly starts to evaporate. Second, the helium supply chain is severed. That hyper-pure helium was critical for cooling the guidance systems in Russia's most advanced missiles. Suddenly, thousands of Russian artillery pieces on the front line just got a little bit deafer and dumber. And finally, the psychological impact. For 72 critical hours, while the Kremlin scrambles to contain the disaster, a deep paranoia begins to fester in the Russian high command. They're asking one question: did Ukraine do this alone, or did their ally Kazakhstan help them? The trust is broken. And so, with a single, brilliant strike, Ukraine proved that modern warfare is won with brains, not just brute force. They turned Russia from an energy king into a bankrupt Santa Claus, shivering through a winter of their own making. It's the ultimate lesson. Don't get cocky about your steel shield. Sometimes all it takes is a clever wind to melt an entire empire.